So, good morning once again, everybody, or good afternoon or good evening if you're watching later, and welcome. Glad y'all are here. So, my topic for this morning is the power to create tricks or treats in honor of what's going to happen on Thursday night. In just a few days, do you have, if you get trick-or-treaters, do you have some sugar, some processed sugar? I know. So what's up with that, right? And if you do it, may I make a suggestion? And we learned this the hard way several years ago. Get the good kind, because get what you like. Because if you got a bunch of leftovers, what do we do with stuff? So you need the Hershey's and the Reese's and the M&Ms and all the good stuff. I'm just saying. So, as we know, in just a few days, the little monsters will once again appear at our front door. There we go. So I was curious about how all this got started, and it's kind of interesting, and you may not know the story of Halloween and how we started this, but I'd like to share it with you. It started with the ancient Celtic festival of, I think it's Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts and evil spirits. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. So, of course, Friday is All Saints' Day, and then Thursday, October 31st, is All Hallows' Eve, or Halloween. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns, festive gatherings, donning costumes, and eating treats. And Scottish children originally donned costumes and pretended to be malicious spirits as they went guising. Hence the word disguise. So the Scottish word translates to guising. So that's what they're doing out in their costumes and so forth. And then hence the word disguise. Kind of interesting, yes. It was believed that by disguising themselves, they would blend in with any wandering spirits and remain safe from harm. They would visit people's homes and ask for treats or money. The trick usually referred to the threat of some less than wonderful experience. So give me the Twix bars or the Hershey's or the whatever, or I will egg your front door or do something goofy, thankfully, which doesn't happen, and we tend to be leaning on the treat side rather than the trick side, but that's where all of that came from. So we gotta do a segue to figure out how to connect my topic, the power to create, with Halloween. So bear with me on this. I promise it'll happen. The power to create. I don't know about you, but what drew me to this teaching and kept me in this teaching was, hey, I create my experience, and as I change my thinking, I change my life. So I was in some way, consciously or unconsciously, involved in this situation. Wonderful. Oh, wait a minute. You mean I was consciously or unconsciously involved in this situation? But the good news is, if we were and we are, then we can make those changes in our lives to create the life that we really want to live. And we'll talk more about that. We call this new thought, which always cracks me up just a little, because there's nothing new. This is old news that we missed out on maybe growing up, but it's been here for many, 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 many years. In the Bible, and you might remember this from Mark 11, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, whoever should say to this mountain, be moved and fall into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will be done, it will be done to him." Therefore, I say to you, anything you pray for and ask, believe that you will receive it, and it will be done for you. We miss that. Not necessarily us, we, but the collective we. It's in there. It really is in there. And in fact, as I recall, it's in all four Gospels, the first four books of the New Testament, this or something similar, but we miss that. But it's true. And then, quoting Ernest Holmes, there is a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. And quoting Reverend Jerry, there is a power in the universe greater than you are, and you can and do use it. Consciously or unconsciously. So we don't get to make the list and say, yeah, I'm going to have this thought, and I have this thought, and it's going to affect how I live my life, but I'm just going to ignore that. It's either all or nothing, and of course we know that it's all. So consider that we're always creating something, either coming from a place of lack and limitation and struggle, or from newness and abundance and possibility. In other words, tricks or treats. We're always creating something. Now, many of the little monsters at the door will be wearing cute and cuddly and also potentially scary masks. I would suggest that very often we do that as well, but not only on Halloween, but also throughout the year, hiding the truth of our being. And we'll talk more about that. We're always creating something. We know that thoughts are creative. I think Ernest Holmes' words, my words do not return to me void. So when we do our affirmative prayer, our spiritual mind treatment, something happens. We are planting seeds and something happens, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So as you may know, 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks? Yeah. 2 weeks ago, Reverend Dr. Suzette and I were at the affiliated New Thought Network Anton retreat at Unity Village outside of Kansas City. Absolutely amazing place. And because I'm president of the Anton board, was reelected for 3 more years. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Anton is a membership organization of Centers for Spiritual Living, Unity, Independence, Divine Science, and other New Thought centers and churches and individuals. And so we get together. We've been around for 33 years. This is our 6th or 7th year at Unity Village. Absolutely an amazing place, open to everyone. And you'll hear me talk more about this, and I bet Reverend Dr. Suzette will as well. Come and be with us next year. It's just such an amazing experience. But as you may know, Centers for Spiritual Living is in the process of selling the property in Golden, Colorado, and moving the Science of Mind archives to Unity Village. INTA, the International New Thought Alliance, is also in the process of moving their archives to Unity Village. So these are amazing. There's Ernest Holmes' chair will be there. Jack Addington's robe will be there. Books and pamphlets and just absolutely amazing things that you can actually go and see and touch. So just really so amazing and so exciting that all of this is going to be there. But the reason that I bring this up is they're in the process of making all the amazing documentation searchable on the internet. And they're not there yet, but they've gotten started. And one of the things I found was this quote from Ernest Holmes' TV show from February 3rd, 1957. I found this on the internet. And he said, "But it is certain that the thought patterns which we lay down, the principle which operates upon them, is rather impersonal. It does not say, well, I don't think that's so good for you, any more than the creative soil in the ground would say, if we plant turnips, perhaps you don't like turnips. Perhaps you'd rather have potatoes or beets or cauliflower or even a rose bush. It will grow anything we put into it. But the point of this quote, and the point that I was looking for, has to do with the concept of our thought patterns. Because one of the things that really scared me when we first got into this teaching was, oh, there's a thought that there's something wrong with the car. Oh my goodness, I'm creating that I need a new transmission, or I'm creating something terrible. No, as we know, it's our patterns of thought. So because we have some ridiculous number of thoughts every day as human beings, and I don't know about you, but when I'm consciously conscious, I notice that and say, that's interesting. And you might remember my affirmation, "Tain't so." Tain't so. I know that's not really good English, but I can't help it. So I invite you to adopt that if you wish. But tain't so. Tain't so. So it's, what are we thinking about all day? How are we inhabiting our lives? And I'll talk more about that. That is creating our experience. And if at any point we say, now wait just a minute, this is so not what I wanted, we can go and start the process of creating something new and different. But I love that. I love that quote. And February 3rd of 1957, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So think about how we inhabit our lives coming from a place of enoughness. And I don't know if that's a word or not, but I just use it, so now it's a word. But so we got up this morning. Did we get enough sleep? Did we have enough coffee? Did we have enough time to get ready for church? Did we have enough time to do the dishes and take out the dog? Do we have enough time? Do we have enough money? Do we have enough knowledge? Are we young enough? Are we old enough? And you see the pattern. Because if we come from that place of not enoughness, it comes out in surprising and wonderful ways. And there's not enough parking places at Costco. And there's not enough room on the freeway when I'm trying to get wherever I'm going. And. So at any point, we can say, now wait just a minute, this is a trick, and I'd really rather have a treat, and begin to make that change based on what we believe about that experience. The mask can show up as lack and struggle, and I'll talk more about that. In the New Testament, Paul said, pray without ceasing. And I would suggest to us that we do that. We might not be doing all the steps of the affirmative prayer or of the science of mind treatment, and sometimes we do, and we center ourselves, and we're quiet, and we do our affirmations, and so on and so on. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes my prayer is, oh God. And sometimes my prayer is something that I'm not going to repeat because it's not pulpit worthy, but you get it. Sometimes our prayer is not the 5 steps. But the good news is there's nobody up there saying, nope, I'm not going to respond because you didn't. He's not he. She is not up there checking the boxes, making sure that we're following the format. Because it's done unto us as we believe, which is way more important than what format we choose to follow. It has to do with our feelings. Neville Goddard, you might have read some of his writing, absolutely wonderful earlier New Thought author. And he talked about, because so many of the New Thought writers talked about the belief, which we know is absolutely important, but also the importance and the necessity of the feeling that goes along with it. And so Neville Goddard was really big about that. And he wrote, think feelingly only of the state you desire to realize. Feeling the reality of the state sought and living and acting on that conviction is the way of all seeming miracles. All changes of expression are brought about through a change of feeling. If you dwell on barriers or delay, the subconscious, by its very non-selective nature, accepts the feeling of difficulties and obstacles as your request and proceeds to produce them in your outer world. Again, if we're planting carrot seeds, we're not going to harvest rutabagas because the universe, life, has no choice but to give us, allow us to harvest the seeds that we planted. So what are we planting? Are they tricks or treats? So throughout our days, we're in honor of Halloween. Throughout our days, I would suggest that we wear different masks depending on the situation that can sometimes hide the truth of our being, who we really are, what we really want to experience, but they come from what we were taught growing up. They come from past experiences. They come from different places, and at any point, because they're not glued, they're just, remember the like the Mardi Gras masks that just have the string, because they're not permanently attached, at any point, we can take it off and say, that's not me anymore, and change our lives. So, for example, there is the victim. Do you remember Fanny Flagg? At the risk of dating myself, she was on Match Game in the 70s and 80s. She was an actress and an author. I think she was on Broadway a lot, but a very, very funny lady, absolutely delightful, and wrote the book Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and several books after that. Absolutely wonderful books. I love them. They're just nice. You know, no spurting blood, nobody got murdered, nobody took the dog, you know, the barn didn't burn down, nothing serious, just some stuff, but just really nice fiction books. And one of the characters in most of her books is this woman named Tot. Now, keeping in mind this is the South, this is Alabama, so no clue what Tot's given name was, but in the books she is always referred to as Poor Tot. Poor Tot's husband was James, who was a raging alcoholic and brought all sorts of situations into the family because of his alcoholism. And it told her stories and what she went through with James. And a dog, they got a stray dog appeared on their doorstep one time, and she took the dog in and tried to take care of it, and before you knew it, the dog gave birth to 11 puppies. Poor Tot. She just had one situation after another situation, and even after she divorced James, adopted out all the dogs, she was still referred to as Poor Tot. What mask do we wear? And is victim one of those? Helpless, powerless, long-suffering, completely out of control. And I wouldn't suggest that that's us 24 hours a day, but do we have a belief that somehow life is happening to us rather than through us? And again, at any point, that's not me anymore, and we can take that mask off. We might have the mask of abandonment. If you were adopted, if a parent passed away or left when you were growing up, or something else happened in your life, you might have that belief that you were somehow abandoned. And very often we can carry these beliefs and these experiences with us for years or decades, unless and until we look at it and say, well, maybe that was the truth then, but that's not my truth anymore. So often it's about changing our story of what happened. And some of you might remember this story that many years ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Dr. Phil show in Hollywood. What amazing experience. If you ever watch him, the set, this absolutely gorgeous wood, medium brown wood set, that's exactly what it looks like. It's really beautiful. But this particular show, he had 3 young women under the age of 18, all who had been sending very inappropriate photos to young men and boys. And the parents found out about it and were very concerned, and so reached out to Dr. Phil and said, is there anything you can do to help us? So he brought the 3 young women onto the show, and in the conversation, he asked them, why are you doing this? And all 3 of them responded, we're just looking for someone to love us. And it came out in the conversation, which he didn't get, by the way, and I wanted to stand up and say, yo, Phil, you're missing something here. I did not, but I wanted to. His show, not mine. All 3 had been adopted. And so, quite possibly, their story was, my birth parents didn't love me and they threw me away. But because we never know exactly what's going on in somebody's heart, what if what happened was their birth parents loved them so much, recognized that they couldn't take care of them the way they deserved to be taken care of, and so they gave them to another family who could. So not only were you loved and chosen by your birth family, you were loved and chosen by your adoptive family. Totally changes their outlook. So we can look at a situation, see what's really true, and change the story as we need to one that feels so much better. There is also the mask of the opinionated. And I don't know about you, but I have it's been long enough that she's more of an acquaintance than a friend, but I have an acquaintance who knows everything about everything. And I really had to laugh because we were in a car many, many, many years ago, and she's talking about what ministers do and what they do and why they do this and how they feel and all the rest of that. And I said, yes, I know. I am one. And she said, oh, yeah, that's right. So when we come across someone, what we can know is that there might be a little insecurity here, that if they know everything about everything, I have to convince you that I know everything about everything, rather than remaining quiet. 2 more, unworthy. Ernest Holmes said, if it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, it should be our good pleasure to receive it. Is it? Do we really say, yes, thank you, and more, please? Quoting my dear friend, Reverend Gene Sweet in Helena, Montana. Or do we say, gee, that was really wonderful, but no, that's enough. I don't want any more good. I can't imagine saying this, but we might. I don't want any more good. That's enough good. Give that to somebody else. Or do we say, yes, thank you, and more, please? Thank you. Because the truth of us is there's nothing that ever happened or could happen that can affect our worthiness and our belovedness. Again, I don't know if that's a word or not, but I used it, so it is now. Because, I don't know about you, but in my some number of years, there's been stuff, using a purely metaphysical term, there's been stuff, and boy, I wish I would have done that differently, or boy, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or whatever. But the only one keeping records is us. So we can take that mask of unworthiness off and say, that's not the truth of who I am. And finally, the worrier. There's a lot to worry about, or not. There are monsters coming Thursday night. But if they take the mask off, that's just somebody's little kid. How much time do we spend in worry, in fear, in, oh my God, what's going to happen if, and you get to fill in the blank. I think my favorite affirmation is, no, that's not it. I just lost it. One moment. Train just fell off the tracks and fell into the canyon. Oh, yeah. But in this moment, all is well. Because all that we're worrying about is something that's going to happen or not happen in the future. I don't know. And I may not know how to deal with it, what to do about it, but I'll know when I need to know, and in this moment, all is well. I invite you to use that if that resonates for you. Because the question for us is life for us. Are we, Louise Hay said, I am safe, it's only change. No matter what the situation is, because that's what life is people change and relationships change and experiences change. Do we really recognize that no matter what the situation is, I'm safe, it's only change? And the appearance of a monster, there's a cute little girl right behind that mask. I'm safe, it's only change. Because, remember, Neville Goddard was talking about our feelings and how powerful they are. Remember, Job in the Old Testament did not have an easy time of it. And he said in Job 3, verse 25, for the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. Because fear is an incredibly powerful emotion. But what we fear so often winds up right. We're drawing it to ourselves, and that becomes our experience. But in this moment, all is well. So the question then is, what do we really believe in? It so often goes back to, what do we really believe about God, Spirit, the universe, our higher power, whatever we choose to call it? Is it the loving, nurturing presence that Jesus talked about? Or is it still the hateful, surly, white, cranky, bitchy, judgmental, straight man up on a cloud somewhere? Because if it is, there's always the opportunity to recognize that tain't so. Tain't so. Yes. See, the English lessons you're getting today are just extraordinary. So consider the masks that we wear and all of these and more besides, and recognize, I invite us to recognize that at any point we can say, in love and compassion and non-judgment, that somehow served me at that point in my life, but it doesn't anymore. And so I can release that fear, I can release those stories, I can release all of that no longer serves me. Anything that hides the truth of our being. And as we know, the truth of our being is that we are the beloved. We absolutely are the beloved, that nothing has happened, nothing could happen that would change that. So this is the perfect day. Before you pack up your Halloween decorations, pack up the masks that no longer serve you, and don't put them in the attic. Take them out and drop them either in the barbecue and light them on fire, or put them in the dumpster. But we don't need to do that anymore, because that's not the truth of our being. And we've been talking about creating a world that works for everyone. And the truth is, the only thing we need to do, there's already enough love, there's already enough abundance, there's already enough all the rest of that. We just need to, and I will almost never tell us what we need to do, but what we need to do is continue to work to get the word out that everything I have is by right of consciousness. You might have heard that expression. Everything that you have is by right of consciousness. And my good does not trample on your good, because mine is mine and yours is yours. And if you don't have enough, you don't need to take mine away from me. You just need to recognize the truth of our being. And that's how the world works for everyone, is by allowing them to see the truth of their being, that they are the beloved just as we are. So there's an event coming up in about 11 days, give or take. We're going to have an election. And I know there's a lot of fear and a lot of trepidation and a lot of what ifs and a lot of oh my gods and a lot of all of those other things, no matter what whether you're blue or red or striped or tutti frutti or whatever, there's a lot of stuff out there. Again, using a purely spiritual term. And I would suggest that we don't have to buy into it. That's why God made remotes on the television. If it winds up on Fox or CNN or MSNBC or any of those, and you're going down that road, and they're all going down that road because that sells advertising and that's what keeps people talking, is that fear and that, oh my God, what if, and all the rest of that. Put on Golden Girls. Yes. Put on 2.5 Men. Put on Mom. Or there's the on-off button. Just every once in a while at my house, I just turn it off. But I'd like to close with a prayer. This came on my Facebook feed. Can I just say again how much I love Facebook? This came on my Facebook feed this morning that I'd like to share with you. This is from Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins. He is the senior minister at Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale and is also the president of Divine Science. And so I would like to pray us out using this, and so I invite you to get comfortable where you are and join me in the light. So for the workings of democracy, I give thanks. For the possibilities that are before us, I give thanks. For the indomitable human spirit and for the power of boundless hope, I give thanks. For the wisdom that is available to us, I give thanks. May we now be motivated by compassion and guided by reason as we make our choices and exercise our freedoms. May we elect competent leaders who will stand up for the rights of all people and who will work for peace, justice, and equality. May this and every nation experience prosperity. May the leaders we choose govern with grace and sound judgment. And may the blessings of liberty, health, and goodwill be experienced within and among all nations. We allow this. We just allow this because that's all we're ever doing. We release thoughts of fear, thoughts of anger, thoughts of frustration, and just allow this to be. We release the masks, anything unlike love, and allow this to be. And in our allowing, so it is. And so it is. Thank you all so much. And now, our beloved musicians, come on back.